Well, good morning and welcome to Fountain Street Church. I am the Reverend Christopher Rowe. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the privilege and the honor of serving as the acting senior minister here in this beloved Cathedral of Love in this historic Temple of Peace. On behalf of everyone who calls this their spiritual home, please let me help welcome you to our worship service this morning. This morning, we welcome Karen Dunnam to this historic pulpit, and we welcome back to the piano Phil Pletcher. I am so grateful for both of their willingness to surrender a bit of themselves and make this worship service all the more meaningful as we continue our way through the 2021 Summer Speaker Series. No matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter what you believe in or what you don't believe in at all, no matter who you love or who you're loved by, whether you are a Fountain Street Church lifer or this is your very first time in this community, you, yes you, each of you and every one of you have a place in this community where love and justice and equity and inclusion are the shared work of our liberating faith. And so, on behalf of everyone who holds that work together, welcome to worship at Fountain Street Church. I am so glad you're with us this morning.
I brought a reading from the affirmations of Louise Hay. I love my life. I love who I am. I am in charge of my life. I think happy thoughts. I feel fine and life is good. My life is filled with love, romance, and joy. Good things come to me in surprising ways. I am healthy, strong, and fit. I feel good, and I feel happy. My life gets better all the time. All is well in my world. Well, good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be standing in this spot, looking at Danny and Conor on a day that's not Sunday. I have a great view of the big house here. The windows, the lights, my light bulb up there that hasn't changed. I'm usually sitting in the back row enjoying the atmosphere and looking around at things. And because you're not here, you have a lovely view of a talking head. So I've added a lot of images that we'll get over to AV later and see if we can make this a little more interesting than just me. Usually when I'm standing in this spot, I'm doing the opening reading and greeting, or it's December, and I'm describing how many tuba and euphonium players turned out for our concert. The summer series presentation is about a pivotal moment in my life, early in my life, that ended up informing just about everything I've done since. If you want to skip to the end, there's a big spoiler in the photo that I provided to the Religious Services Committee. When I arrived at high school in 1970, I was in the band, one of about 30 flute players. It was fall, and our director, Mr. Hansen, put us through the paces, learning formations and patterns to present at the football game. I really liked band, and I particularly liked marching band. The music was interesting, it was fun to line up and parade to the football field. It was fun to spend the class drilling. School bands are multi-year, so there were a few people I knew who'd been in 9th grade when I was in 8th. And when I was in 10th grade, we had juniors and seniors, so a wide range of ages and experiences. There were students who'd attended other junior highs, which is what we called them back in the 70s. So there were about 100 of us on our team. It was fun to present the pregame show, the halftimes, to play the fight song when the team scored, and again after the game. My junior year, I attended a football game at the other big house, not this one, but the one in Ann Arbor. All I can say is, wow. Our band was okay, that band was fabulous. They played well, they marched in step with each other. We didn't always do that. They even walked in step when a small group left the field to go get their apple snack and walked around the stadium playing to the spectators. There were a lot of them, so they were loud, and the crowd in the stands really appreciated them. I immediately decided that's what I want. I want to be in the Michigan Marching Band. One problem, there weren't any flute players. There was one piccolo player, a guy, and he was really good. I wasn't. Returning to school, I looked around the band room for something that would expedite this goal. There were already a lot of trumpet players and saxes. My brother had played drums. There were a lot of them. I liked low brass, but I didn't read bass clef music. So trombone and tuba were out. And then I noticed the baritone horn and the fact that its music comes in 2 flavors, bass clef and treble. So I'd spend my lunch hours in the practice room running scales and memorizing fingerings. 3 valves. I'd also gotten braces that year, which was an additional challenge when learning a new embouchure. Fortunately, we had a large, better band at school and a smaller band where I was the only baritone. When it came to apply for colleges, I went with our 2 local Big Ten universities. MSU accepted me immediately, but my mother said I should hold off on accepting them, since U of M was what I really wanted. She might have said that Michigan is more prestigious and leaves a better overall impression. I was more concerned with changing the color scheme because mine was a green and white high school, and I wanted something different. I thought that transportation engineering would be a good major since I wanted to work in a field that encouraged bicycling. More about that in a bit. U of M accepted me, and I went off for student orientation, which included an audition at the band hall. On that day, I rode my bike down State Street, turned onto Hoover, parked and locked my bike at the rack at the corner by the swimming hall, this natatorium, swimming pool. On that day, I rode my bike down State Street, turned onto Hoover, parked and locked my bike at the rack by the corner of the natatorium. I went inside and I overheard the most beautiful euphonium sound. Another student was playing his audition. Everyone had to try out again every year. He was an upperclassman. He was a music major. And I turned around and left the building. I went outside to the bike rack. I might have unlocked my bike, ready to roll away. I don't know how long I hovered there in limbo between my uncertain futures. I recall thinking, I can go away, skip this audition, and I won't be in the band. But then what will I do on Saturday? Do I go to the football games and sit in the stands watching the marching band on the field thinking, and what will I do at these few months of hard work, woodshedding in the practice room? I went back in. I played the audition. I was nowhere near the level of competency I'd heard from the hallway, but they'd made space for 10 euphoniums, and only 9 players turned out. It only lasted the 1 year. In 1975, it became obvious that the highly technical engineering program wasn't a good fit, and I landed at a community college, which offered course credit for playing in a community band. I joined the one in Royal Oak and also the one in Birmingham. They met on different nights. A guy from one of those groups came up with the idea of a bicycle band, and I joined it. In 1976, I transferred to our other Big Ten school. I enrolled in the urban planning program at Michigan State. And because I wanted to make new friends and have something fun to do, I tried out for marching band. I made it. That was different. The best part was the baritone section worked up an arrangement of the Fago boat song, which will be familiar to anyone who grew up in Metro Detroit. We performed it at football games to wild acclaim. When I discovered contra and square dancing in October 1981, I immediately fell in love with it. It's the perfect postgraduate application of marching band. You're walking to music played at march tempo, 8 or 16 steps, turn, do something else. I started attending meetings of a folk music group, took up mandolin and harmonica, and I eventually added fiddle, which isn't hard to play, but there are a ton of great fiddlers, kind of like the trumpets. 9 years into it, I took a dance color workshop and then started leading dances at private parties, special events, and dance society gatherings. One time I was calling in Ann Arbor, and a group of students dropped in. I could tell that they were new to contra dancing, but they seemed to pick it up really well. At the break, I found out they were in the marching band. I discovered Tuba Christmas in 1985, coordinated my first event in 1986, and I've run one for most of the last 30-some years. About 8 years ago, I brought it here to Fountain Street Church, and hopefully we'll be here in December, filling up the chancel and the seats with tuba and euphonium players. An E-flat sousaphone entered my life in 2001, and I had to learn how to play it. With an E-flat horn, you can do this mental transposition thing of adding 3 sharps and reading it in treble clef. So you don't have to learn how to read bass clef and learn new fingerings. You can fake it. I now have a couple baritones, euphoniums, and tuba-flavored horns, including an 1850s era upright tuba, which I play at Civil War reenactments, and most recently, a 1909 Helicon. This means I look up music-related activities wherever I'm at or can easily travel to. I've taken holiday trips that revolve around tuba Christmas events. I've visited New Orleans for Mardi Gras, where I've walked in several parades. I've been to the Honk Fest in Massachusetts and Texas and Seattle. I went to Rochester, New York twice to play in suffrage parades. I went to Coopersville to be a movie extra in the football stadium, staying up all night, bringing along my baritone and beach balls so we could entertain ourselves between camera takes. The second night I went there, I played the chicken dance at 4 in the morning, and the whole stadium did the chicken dance. I went to Chicago and Washington, D.C., and Detroit to march in protest demonstrations with my horn. As an ally, I traveled to Chicago, Columbus, Detroit, and Lansing to march with pride bands. And this summer, with my usual community bands unable to rehearse, I fell in with a clown band. I made a top 10 list of results of this glorious obsession from back when I was 17. I can step off 5 yards, 8 paces, in less time than it takes to unroll a measuring tape. This means I can measure a new dance hall or a cell site location for construction or landscaping in my backyard. Just walk it off. I know how far the distance is. If you walk into a special event with a musical instrument, you become part of the show. You can make a lot of protest march attendees very happy by riffing on "If I Only Had a Brain" or the main leitmotif from Jaws. I almost never miss an opportunity to reference the think system, or in a conversation drop in another line of dialogue from The Music Man. When All Things Considered ran a piece about the service songs and mentioned that there are 5 pieces, 5 service branches, I started noodling Semper Paratus, Coast Guard. Once you start doing jazz and other improv and pivoting with what's being thrown at you, you get better at it. This means you start coordinating things, organizing events, living a little closer to the edge of the experience frontier. I've become fearless, not reckless, but fearless with afterthought. Travel, do-it-yourself home repair, long-distance car purchases, booking flights. Whenever there's an opportunity to be an extra in a film or a special event or a parade, I'm there with a horn, a carefully planned outfit, and accessories. I always apologize to parents of the little kids who are enthralled by what I'm doing, because in 5 or 10 years, they'll be driving around with a big, heavy instrument. It's always more fun to be a participant. What does this all mean for you, dear listener, fellow Fountain Streeter, member of one of the ensembles I've played with, looking this up on YouTube? I mentioned standing here giving the welcome previously. On one of our Reverence for Life Sundays, I was here with one of my cats. Reverend Matthew Cockram offered the introduction. His theme was, "Just say yes." I can still hear he'd say, "Yes," and the dogs would start barking. Other creatures chimed in. It was hilarious. We'll see if we can find the video and add a snippet.
Our call to worship this morning is, as usual, the one place at Fountain Street and the one time where there is one right answer. And the answer this Sunday is, I say yes. So I want you to practice that, whether you're going to bark it or meow it or however you make that. Say, I say yes when I raise my arms. I say yes. Excellent. Yes. I said however you're going to say it.
Just say yes when you're invited to do something. Your obligations will still be there when you get home. You can fit in a rehearsal, you can fit in a concert, you can fit in a parade, you can fit in a movie shoot. Just do it. Get up off the couch, push back from the screen. You might find yourself at a bike rack wondering, what am I doing? Go for it.
Every week in our worship service, we take a pause. We take a breath together. And in that breath, we respond. That response is to our worship, but also to our shared values, our collective work together, that love and that justice, that inclusion and that equity that we talk about. And it's through the offering. We have this rich tradition here of giving more of ourselves beyond these walls, and we do it by giving 50% of the weekly offering to those organizations in this community that we support. But the 50% that stays here has purpose and value too. That 50% keeps this 152-year ministry going forward. It keeps the lights on, it keeps the staff paid, it keeps the programs that you love and cherish moving forward, and it supports this community in broader ways. So with the spirit of breath and rest and the spirit of generosity, the offering will now most graciously be received. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you to Karen Dunnam for offering your message to us, and to Phil Pletcher for your gift of music that enriches this worship. And as I say every week, thank you to each and every one of you who shows up week after week. And so on behalf of everyone who shares in the work of love and justice and inclusion and equity, we hope for you a week of health, joy, peace, and resilience. And until we see you next week, take good care and go in peace. Be resilient, my friends.